please rise, stand up. Okay, please be seated. Welcome, everyone. We want to acknowledge that Randy Hardwood gave a beautiful family prayer prior to the beginning of this service in honor of his dad and his family. We'd like to acknowledge Camille Bertinelli will be playing our prelude and postlude music today. And Holly Bassett will be our chorister. I know we're heartbroken for the loss of Mark, our husband, father, grandfather, uncle, brother, and friend. But I do know Mark pretty well. And he would want us to turn this into a day of celebration. To celebrate his life and what he meant to all of us. And not a day of mourning. So let's make today a day to celebrate his life and the richness of that life. And for the opportunity we had to know him and have him in our lives. We will now have an opening hymn. Please join us in singing one of Mark's most favorite songs. Come thou fount of every blessing. After which we will have Eric Keys, a close friend of Mark's, will give the invocation.
dear Father, we bow before you in the name of the anointed Son, to give thee thanks for this privilege we've had of Mark Frederick Hardwood, for his witness to us, and every time he would gladly bend to every ear his witness of you, and how grateful he was for you, the things that he has always done for you. You have always done for him in his life. We are so grateful for this witness, and we're so grateful for his life. To us, he was a true brother, a friend, a mentor, and we are so grateful for these things. Now we know that death only has a sting, but it does not finish here. We ask you to continue with him and be about him and strengthen him as he goes forth to do the things that he's been called to do. We ask you to bless his family and watch over them, to strengthen them and encourage them, and help them to remember the beauty of this experience. And this we say and ask in your Son's name. Amen.
We will now have the life sketch by Mark's daughter, Megan Berry. After the life sketch, we will hear from Randy Hardwood, Mark's son. And then we will have a special musical selection by Mark's daughter-in-law, Debbie Hardwood, and her family. And after that musical selection, we will be able to hear from Jesse Hardwood, Mark's son. So we'll proceed to that point.
Mark Frederick Hardwood of Eagle Mountain, Utah. He passed away from health complications surrounded by his family on Thursday, 16th, 2021, or December 16th, 2021 in Lehi, Utah. Mark was born on July 27th, 1961 in Salt Lake City, Utah, the only son of Frederick Leroy and Marcia Ray Harris Hardwood, the eldest of 5 children. His childhood years were spent living in Las Vegas, Nevada, Norco, and Garden Grove, California, eventually moving back to Riverton, Utah during his teenage years. He graduated from Beath High School in 1980, then served at LDS Mission in Charleston, West Virginia. His fondest memories were serving the people, teaching the gospel, and developing many lifelong friendships. He married his eternal sweetheart, Linda White, on March 18th, 1983. They have been married for 30 amazing years. Mark was very passionate and determined man in all aspects of his life. Above all was his relationship and love for Christ and God their Father. He loved to share and talk about the Lord every chance that he could with anyone who would listen. He had a love for the Lord and a love for his fellow man. He always looked for the eternal good in every situation and knew that the Lord had a purpose for every experience we endured. He taught by example to always love and forgive. If you had the privilege to know the man underneath that perceived hard exterior, you would find a gentle, driver man who would do anything for anyone. saw Linda, she took his breath away. He loved her more than life itself. He'd say she is so beautiful and smart, and Mark knew that he would be giving her his whole heart. He knew she was the woman he would spend his life and beyond with. She is his best friend, and he'd always say that she's the real boss of everything. Linda was his light and his strength. She would keep him going on his path. Mark absolutely knew he married a very special woman, the best wife and mother anyone could ask for. Mark is Linda's unwavering rock and tower of strength. He is giving her guiding light through their journey of life together. They shared great joys and many challenges. He was and will always be the steady hand during times of heartache and tribulation. He leads his family with strength, courage, and love. Mark loved and cherished his children from the moment they were born. They were his pride and joy. He was very proud of all their many accomplishments and always loved to brag about them. He taught and expected them to give their all in everything they did. He told them, if you play, play harder. If you work, work harder. They always knew he'd be there for them no matter what, and told every one of his children, you may be little, but your shadow is big. I'll always have your back. Mark absolutely loved being a grandpa. He thoroughly enjoyed spending time with all of his grandchildren. Her crazy and sometimes dangerous side-by-side adventures. Never-ending games of tag, teaching the fine art of scaring the daylights out of Grandma. His signature handshake of knuckles and fireworks. To snuggle with them in his rocking chair and reading any book they would bring him. Trey, Gracie, Cole, June, and little Maeve. Grandpa loves you all so much. Mark was a general contractor for over 35 years. He was one of the hardest working men in this world and taught all who worked with him his strong work ethic. He took pride in his work and made sure every home he designed and built was of the very best quality. He was self-taught in the art of framing and all aspects of building from the beginning of any project to the successful completion. The passion and drive would result in him working from sunup to sundown. To find balance, the Lord counseled him to buy a trailer and take his family camping, which he did and he never regretted it. He enjoyed so many wonderful years exploring Utah's beautiful mountains and spending time with his family and friends. He took great care and truly enjoyed manicuring his home and yard. He was a perfectionist about everything, and it showed in all his endeavors. Listening to his storytelling and sharing his life experiences was always an enjoyment. The survivors include his wife Linda, all of his children, Randall James, Debbie Hardwood, Jesse Cole, Haley Hardwood, Megan Leanne, Scott Berry, and his 5 grandchildren, Trey, Gracie, Cole, June, and Maine. He's also survived by his sisters, Danny and Scott Robert, Tracy, Lily, and Miley, Robin and Mark Foley, Lonnie and Paul Hager. He is preceded in death by his son, Cody Aaron Harley, and his parents, Fred and Marcia Harley. Death takes the body, God takes the soul. Our minds hold the memory, our hearts keep the love. Our faith lets us know that we'll meet again. I love you, Dad. I miss you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Randall James Hardwood. I'm the oldest son of Mark and Linda Hardwood. I would like to thank all of you for being here. It really means a lot to our family. Especially as we pay tribute and honor to my father. As most of you know, I go by the name Randy. Well, I was always called Randall if I was in trouble. So this is something that then maybe I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. So I went by Randy, it was better. But my dad, he'd call me Rand. He'd say, hey Rand, come over here, what do you think about this? Hey Rand, let's go do this project. Hey Rand, this, hey Rand, that. So if that was his thing, that's kind of call me that as well. I'm up here today because I want to talk about a few words that my father has shared with me over the years. In the course of my life. Some of the things maybe I've learned and gained and attempted and failed and attempted again at implementing. So my dad asked me when I was a teenager, and I had a friend over, to go out, and we have this old 77 Ford truck. It was getting snowy and rowdy outside, and he said, hey, you've been working on it, the hood's open, you need to go get the tools out of it. You need to shut the hood so it doesn't snow on that thing. And, you know, I did it. So I went out and I did it. And then went back upstairs playing with my friend. And he came to the bottom of the stairs and he yelled for me. I came to the top of the stairs and he said, hey, did you do it? And I walked to the bottom of the stairs and I said, no, you should go do it yourself. I don't know if anybody know my dad very well. Tough exterior. I made it from the bottom of the stairs to the top of the stairs without touching a stair. It's like 10 stairs, right? Followed by him leaning over the top of me with his finger on my chest, and he said to me, I want to go find it because I'm going to get it right. What did you just say? That was pretty easy. I said, well, I said, I meant I already did it. He looked at me, a bit confused, like, what was that for? And he said, well, wasn't that easier? And I said, yeah. So what I learned there, telling the truth is much better and much cooler. So my lesson is that. Do what you say and say what you do. We got our first Nintendo. I don't know if some of you guys know the old gray Nintendos. We used to play it all the time. For some reason it was unhooked. I was probably grounded from it, I'm guessing. Me and Jesse, we probably fought over it. Anyway, it was unhooked in a box. I begged my dad, hey, can we hook that thing back up? Let's do it. And begged, and he finally said, okay, I'll show you how to do it one time. And then you have to do it yourself. And I was like, well, I need to do this. I can have one time, I don't know what you're talking about. So he went over, and he showed me, you know, there's two wires in the back. There's a yellow and there's a red or a white. And then there's a power cord. Pretty simple, right? Well, he hooked it all up. I went to sit down and start playing. Then he unhooked everything. He put it back in the box. And he said, okay, now your turn. I hope you pay attention. So I whined and cried a little bit. And he said, okay, well, you're just not playing if you're not going to set it up. So I got in that box and pulled it out and started looking at it. Okay. I remember he said there's a yellow and a white cord. Where's that go? I'll get the back of the TV. It's an old RCA cabinet TV. It only has 3 inputs on the back. Should be easy, right? Well, I've already taken it. There's already stuff put into it. And I was like, okay, game over. I can do this. Because he plugged the VCR back into it. So I traced that cord. Oh, went to the beach there, so I unplugged that. Oh, that can go there. Plug in the power, turn it on, doesn't work. He's like, did you make sure it was on channel 3? I was like, oh, you didn't tell me that part. So I go to channel 3, and it's working. And he just smirked. But I've taken that lesson into all aspects of my life through the years, problem solving. And he told me, at the end of it, he told me that everything is easy when you break it into bite-sized morsels. Take that big mountain and you go step by step by step. You can only troubleshoot one thing at a time. You can only problem solve and be present for one moment at a time. And I took that lesson to heart that day. Being a little kid, that was whiny, but I tried to implement that one. He taught me that everyone in the world is another soul. Even a CEO of a company, however treat them with respect, isn't equal. No one is above another. He taught me, my siblings, to respect and honor our mother. And that was engraved into us. Our mother is a goddess to us. And we knew if we disrespected her, or let alone anybody else did, we'd have a boot so far apart. Actually, he actually said, I'll kick you in the butt so hard you'll flip around, and when you fart, you'll blow your brains out. Make sure you do that, man. Get your hand in my head. That was terrifying. But we all love our mother very much. And we get the opportunity to love her even more now. And respect her, honor her, and be there for her. And we will be. When I was 12, my dad and I, we went to a lawnmower store. I don't remember the name of it, my mom might. I saw a tote goat. I don't know if some of you remember the tote goat, little Mancomb machine tote goat. I just had to have it. I begged my dad for it. And, after a few days, he said, I'll make a deal with you. Okay. If you come work with me over the summer, I'll pay you. You pay for half that tote goat, it's yours. I'll pay the other half. But you have to work with me in my way. Okay, that's not a big deal. When I was younger, I had been to the job site. I picked up some trash outside. I had done those things, after school. My mom would drop me by and then she'd drop off lunch to the guys when he's out there working. First day, summer break, wake up to my dad at 5:30 a.m. Haven't packed your lunch. Better get what you want. Pack the lunch. My mom's helping down there. It's still dark outside. Get to the job site. All right, see that big pile of stuff? That needs to go there. Okay, start on that. All right, now you need to go nail down these tie-downs, put on these H1s, sweep the floors, day in, day out. Dark in the morning, dark at night. All summer long we did this. I was like, wow, this is way harder than that. I never negotiated pay for this. I didn't even know I was getting paid. He actually didn't pay me. I didn't know what was happening. I was just... So, we get to the end of the summer, and I think I already forgot about the togo. I was just trying to survive this thing. He loads me up in his truck. We go down to the lawnmower store. He buys it. And he said, I'm going to buy this for you, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach you how to ride it, but I'm going to teach you how to fix it. If you're going to drive something, you better know how to work on it. Nothing you own should not be fixed by somebody else. You should be able to do the basics. And so, back to the Nintendo story, taking about the Togo, that was brand new, I don't know why, but yeah. Anyways, we rode the crap out of that thing, and we had a blast. And it meant so much to earn that. My dad worked so hard for us as kids to provide things for us. He worked tirelessly. Christmases were always elaborate. My mom would do these eloquent savings schemes, and I don't even know if my dad knew how much he was getting, and I don't know if she knew how much he was getting until Christmas came. Well, Christmas Eve, we did our typical tradition. We opened pajamas as a family after dinner. We sat down and we read the story of Christ's birth out of the Bible, and go to bed. Well, we go to bed. I think my parents went to bed at like 4 a.m. Anyways, those kids would go pound on the door about 5:30. They come out around 6. We open gifts. Well, this typical year in Eagle Mountain, it was very snowy. There was a lot of snow. Back when we got real snow. We had pretty good snow yesterday. But after we got done opening the gifts, we had breakfast. And all us kids were geared up to play with all these things. And we're like, okay, this is pretty cool. And my dad said, suit up. Suit up for what? We're going to go plow the neighborhood. There's nobody else outside. It's Christmas Day. What are you thinking? We're plowing the neighborhood. Get your shovels, all you kids, I'll be out there with you. Get the four-wheeler, get the plow. And we plowed the neighborhood. We plowed until dark. I don't remember what time we got back. We were exhausted. My dad said, go in the garage and grab the sleds. We hooked the sleds up to the four-wheeler and he towed us for another 2 hours on the sleds. Probably got rid of it, but it was a blast. It's probably one of my most memorable Christmases. It taught me service. That it's not about the gifts, it's about the time spending together, that hard work and serving others. We really busted our butts that day, and it was amazing. It was one of my favorite Christmases. Only a few more of these guys. When I was 8 years old, we lived in West Jordan, next to County Pass. I can see that there. We had this cat, this mangy cat that we found that my dad said I couldn't have, and they fell in love with. Because it was round, it was bald, and it looked deathly. Well, it grew into this big, white, beautiful cat that we thought was a girl, but it was a boy. And it was going to be named Jasmine, so we changed it to Jazz. So it's not like the Jazz basketball team. Anyway. So we had this cat named Jazz, and he was my buddy. He was my best friend. I talked to him about everything. We would hang out. He was around all the time before, after school. And one day, every now and again, we would just kind of go away, come back, for a day or something. But it just felt weird. He was gone. Day passed by. Like, okay, he usually comes back. I go and search for him. 2 days pass. He's still gone. I go and search for him, starting to get a little bit of anxiety. 3 days pass by. Talked to my dad about it. I'm upset. He told me, hey, you need to have courage. It's okay to be afraid. Why don't we try prayer? I had searched all the neighborhoods. I was starting to accept, okay, he's probably dead. He's lost my best friend. So we sat down together and we prayed about it. He helped me do it. And another day went by. Nothing happened. I'm losing faith now. Now I got this and that and this and that. So next day goes by, my dad tells a story that he knelt down and he prayed. And he was in tears because he couldn't bear to see his son so shredded. And he just pleaded and asked, I don't care if this cat's dead, he needs to come back. I don't care what you have to do, but your will, whatever it may be. And next morning, there was a scratch on the, I think it was the garage door. I opened the door, and there's Jazz, now black. I think he had tire tracks on him, I don't even know. We nursed him back to health, and he lived another 80,000 years. I don't know how many years he lived. I'll never forget that. Several years ago, at one of my jobs, I was really struggling with somebody. One of my coworkers, and we were bickering, and it made the job as miserable. I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave. This is just horrible. And, I dealt with it for a while, and finally I vented to him, and he sat down with me and he said, Rand, you know what the problem is? I said, yeah, did you hear what I said about this guy? This is the problem. He said, no, the problem is you. What are you talking about, this guy? He said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. That makes no sense. So let me explain. Have you ever thought, this person could be carrying a burden. Maybe they had a bad year. Maybe they had death in the family. Maybe they lost somebody. Maybe they're sick. Maybe they have a child that's sick, ill, something. Anything. You don't know. Maybe they have financial burdens. You don't know their story and why they act that way. Now let me tell you what. You can sink to that level and you can be that, or you can lift that person up to your level and build them up. If you're in the business of building up people, there's no time for tearing them down. And if you change the way you look at that, and the people and their burdens, the things you look at will change. That's pretty much it. It's my last story. Back when my mother and father got engaged, my dad would give my mom 11 red roses and 1 white rose for purity. This is all the turmoil of life. My dad carried this tradition on for several years, symbolizing it each year. 1 white rose, 11 red roses. This to me was not just a token of love, but a deeper meaning. And I saw that so much, especially over the last few weeks of my dad's life. I saw how much they really cared for each other. How much my dad fought just to hold her hand through being, I can't think of the word, paralyzed. He fought through all those struggles just to hold her hand and squeeze it as tight as he could. My mom would spend every waking hour she could with him, exhausted and tired, just to hold him up and be by his side, talking with him, breathing with him. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. This to me, they were sweethearts. And this was a dedication of that. And this has been seared into my heart. And I really saw that example that you guys put out there in the hardest of times. And like these roses, everyone isn't perfect. They have their flaws, even the white one for purity. But as a bouquet, when they're united, they're beautiful. Each in their own differences, but beauty and strength together. That's family. So these are a few of my stories and lessons I've learned along the way with my dad. He'd be here for a very long time if I told him all. I truly learned a lot from this man. I just want to say I love you, Dad. And I couldn't have picked a better dad for me. I'm a perfect father. I just want to thank you for being my dad. Thank you.
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music.
My dad taught me one thing, is to lead by example. And when I became a dad, that was my sole goal with my kids, was to be a good example. Not a very good example. I think everybody knows that Mark Hardwood worked harder than anybody standing next to him. But he always led by example. Over the last 7 years since my son was born, I've gotten to really get to know my dad. I had a lot of questions for him. And he never hesitated to help, to teach, to lend an ear, lend a hand. And it really didn't matter if you were his son or a complete stranger, he'd give you the shirt off of his back. Without hesitation. With my kids, he was able to spend a lot of time with them, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything he taught me as his son, and for my example I give to my kids. Cole was his little buddy, and watching those two work next to each other melts my heart. Cole loves his grandpa. I love my dad. I'm very grateful that I know how to work hard, and that I would give anybody the shirt off of my back, and I would do anything for anybody. Service was his biggest thing. But people are people, and some people need help. It's okay to need help, and it's okay to lead by example. We may or may not have butted heads throughout the years, but I learned very quickly that he's way smarter than I am, and his heart is way bigger than mine was. His heart, the heart of a lion. He was so strong. I don't know how somebody that broken still works that hard, and he never stopped. You couldn't stop him if you tried. And I'm trying really hard to be like that, but I'm pretty tired. I'm glad to call him my dad. I feel like I'm privileged, very privileged, to be the son of both my parents. And they're both very good examples. I'm very grateful for everything they've done for my family. I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss talking to him for hours and hours and hours about everything, everything in life, every struggle I had, every struggle he had. I've lived with him for the last 2 years, and I've been able to really make up for a lot of lost time. I'm so grateful for that. And I got to see him in a completely different light. Didn't really know he had. If anybody had the privilege to know him, I think you should feel grateful, because he was such a big person. And they don't make him like that anymore. They really don't. Just want to say, Dad, I love you. Thank you for everything. And for getting me through the hardest times of my life, and always being there for my family. Thank you. I didn't swear.
Last night I told him he could swear. That's why I was sitting on the front row. I wanted to get the full effect. But anyway, we want to thank you guys. I mean, Megan. Maybe I'll start swearing. We want to thank Megan and Randy and Debbie and your family and Jesse. You know how hard that is. Beautiful tributes to your dad. We know you loved us, so thank you. At this time, Mark's family, we would like to open up the mic up here to come up and share an experience, a thought, a tribute with your interactions with Mark and his family. So the time is yours. Please come up and share.
Mark always said, just love them. And he meant that about anybody. Just love them. Just love them. Anybody in your life. Whether you disagree or you have issues with each other or you don't like them, just love them. Just love everyone. Just love them. That's what he'd say. Just like that. Just love them.
I met Mark for the first time back in 1982. It was in the summertime. We were both in West Virginia. And he was in my district as missionaries. He had another companion that was a difficult companion. And so he'd come over with his companion to my apartment. And then him and my companion would skip out. We're doing splits today. And I'd have to go with his companion. And he was kind of a difficult individual. I learned he was in that situation for 1 or 2 months, I believe, and then he was getting ready to go home, and he asked the mission president asked him, "You got 1 month, what do you want to do?" He says, "I want to be companions with Gary." So grateful for that time. We're together 1 month, and I learned more than I did the whole rest of my mission. We read all the scriptures in 1 month. We taught more lessons. We were the top companionship in the whole mission. In that 1 month, we had some wonderful experiences. He hated to track, and I thought of it as a challenge to go tracking, and so I enjoyed it. So one day he says, "Okay, I'll go tracking with you." And he took me out and Never Land. And there was about 5 miles in between each house, and we were walking. So we got to talk a lot. Didn't teach any lessons that day. We just knocked on empty doors. But I do remember some lessons we taught, and this is why I'm here today. We met this Church of Christ minister, and we went in, and he accepted to listen to the missionary discussions. And so we went in, we taught an introductory lesson and made a return appointment and come back the next time. And it was either the second visit or the third visit, I'm not sure. But we went into this minister's office, and his name was Don Craighead. He was a very well-known Church of Christ minister. And he turned to us, he says, "I got a question." And Mark spoke up. He said, "This is your question, and this is your answer." And the Church of Christ minister just kind of dropped his jaw. "How did you know my question before I even asked it?" And so Don spoke up again and says, "I have another question." And Mark said, "This is your question, this is your answer." And then my jaw dropped. And I thought, how does he know this? The Spirit was extremely strong with him that day. And the third time around, he says, Don spoke up, he says, "I have another question." Mark said, "This is your question, this is your answer." And Don got frustrated, threw his Bible on the floor, and said, "Would you please let me ask the question before you answer?" I had never, ever in my life seen a person with the power of discernment so strong that he could do that. And I stand as a witness of that power of discernment that he had. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the experiences I had. We had another experience toward the end of our time. We was only together 1 month. And we had a fireside on a Sunday afternoon scheduled. And the mission office sent the materials that we had for the fireside to the wrong side of the mission. And so Mark and I talked, and we said, and we told the other elders there, "We'll go get the materials, and you guys get set up for the fireside." So we had to drive from Marietta, Ohio, clear to the other side of the state of West Virginia to get the materials. I think they were in a little town called Summersville, probably about 500 to 1,000 people. And we drove there. We didn't have the speed limit. We drove as we needed. But every time we got slowed down on the road, cop passes going the other direction, and we'd zoom around the car and take off again. And we got to Summersville, West Virginia. And I was thinking in my mind, how are we gonna, it's Sunday, how are we gonna get into the post office on Sunday afternoon? So we drove into Summersville, and it was like driving into, it was probably driving into a dinky little Utah town with one main street. And we drove into the town. There's a guy out here working on his lawn. Let's stop and ask that guy. We stopped, and he's an old man working on his yard. And we asked him, it says, we had some materials sent supposed to go to Marietta, Ohio, and they ended up in Summersville, West Virginia, and we need to get in the post office. Well, it just so happens this elderly gentleman was the postmaster. He says, "Sure, we'll go down and get it for you." Went down to the post office and got our materials, and we were back on the road. We made it back about 15 minutes before the program started, set it up. We had a film and a projector and some other materials there. and did her fireside. And I thought, and everything along the way. I mean, we passed 3 highway patrolmen, they could have easily picked us up. And for some reason, we were slowed down right at the moment. They passed us, and we went on our way. And just amazing things happen. And the practical jokes that he played. I told him the very last day, I hate your guts. The next week, I'm calling him, I got a problem. I need some advice. What do you want me to do here? What's your advice? And he was always that way. I look at him as a brother. The other day I got frustrated. This is a few months back. I got frustrated at him. He asked me to do something I didn't really want to do. I had other things on my mind. And I was a little bit bent out of shape doing it. And he come over and I can relate, Jesse and Randy. If I'd been on the stairway, I'd been at the top of the stairway. But he come back. I come back to him. And he greeted me as a brother. He even told me, "You're like a brother to me." I'm very grateful to him. All the times, and I was going through a little bit of history the other day, just thinking about all of our times together. And I'm just so grateful. I love you, Mark. And I love your family. And I'm thankful that he has been a part of my life. Amen.
I will try without cursing. That's hard. I've known Mark for 20 years. The hours that him and I would sit and just tell stories and call each other BS each time. The times that he would look at me and say, "Dave, you're so full of blank," and to be humble and to take it back throughout the conversation as I would tell him, "Mark, you're so full of crap." And he would take it. And the last year and a half, he's worked for me. Helped me. 2 days ago was a busy day. And I immediately thought, I need to give him a call so he can help me and make these calls for me. I still haven't decided if I was going to delete his contact from my phone, just so I can still have it.
was on vacation a month and a half ago, and he was supervising a project for me. And at times, Mark and I would butt heads because, frankly, he thought he knew everything. And I was arrogant enough to think that I did as well. So we were good matches for our egos. He probably a lot more humbler than I am. So something I can learn. But he had the framers build this wall that he swore, when I got back from vacation, he swore that wall was in the right place. And it frustrated the heck out of me when I came in and saw this wall where it was clearly not supposed to be. But he did his reasoning for it being there, and me being me, I told him he was wrong. And Mark being Mark said, no, it's not. I wanted it there. That's the way I wanted it, and it'll work. And I said no, because I like to argue with him. I like to argue with him a lot, sometimes too much, but I will miss that. And I remember when he told me, call the electrician. Ask the electrician if that wall is in the right place, without asking him why. And I did. And the electrician showed up and said, no, the wall is in the wrong place. It can't be there. So I gloated. And I called Mark, because I'm going to have a really good day when I can prove Mark is wrong. And I did. I told him, and he said, you know what? I'm sorry. I thought it would work. But he was humble enough. Another story, having been in the landscape business for a bunch of years, and Mark as well, everybody knows that Mark is a perfectionist when it comes to pruning, non-stop. Leaves can't be in the wrong place of the yard, a tree, a bush, and I would argue with him forever that roses can't be pruned to look like topiaries and they won't bloom. Just will never have flowers. And I told Linda a couple days ago, at least her roses will have flowers again.
Well, I've known Mark's dad for many, many years. We worked together, but I never really got to know Fred's family that well. And I knew of Mark, but I had not met him. Went to his farewell, I think, first time I saw him. At any rate, the time that I've been able to be friends with Mark for 20-some-odd years, and being in 84, you start to think about things like this. But when you're young, that doesn't enter into your mind. That can't happen to you. So I'm taking more seriously the things that he taught, and the things that he taught me. We used to go golfing and have breakfast, and we had lunches. This was many years ago, and since that time, when things got more serious, we all moved to Eagle Mountain and recognized Mark for who he is. He's a wonderful man. spiritual man. You can't be around him very long without the conversation turning to God and scriptures, and he tied it into everything. And he taught me, as he taught many, the importance of having a relationship with the Lord. He said that's really important in your life, to be able to have him guide you in every step you make. That everything you do, you turn to him and find out his will and how his Spirit works with his will. I'm so grateful for the things he taught. I know he was excited when people embraced the truth. And he was so disappointed when people turned away and wouldn't listen. But at any rate, he's left us with quite a legacy here in our spiritual understanding anyway. And I dearly love him. And I've come to love his dear wife. She's a wonderful person. The family's great. And I'll forever cherish the things that Mark taught me. And I'll forever have them in my heart and try to live what he taught. To try to be a repentant sinner. We're all sinners. The importance is, are we repentant sinners? And there's a whole lot of difference. Anyway, that's all I have to say, other than I'm just grateful for his friendship all these years that we've had together. Many things that he taught me, as he taught many. He loved everyone without condition. He would listen to anyone who would want to talk with him. And he would give you his undivided attention about anything you want to talk about. Anyway, I'll miss him dearly. I'm thankful for this privilege and opportunity to say a few words.
My name's Steve. Randy, I appreciate your words. When I was a teenager, when I was 15, we were at must have been a family function, and I was talking to Mark, and he's like, yeah, you want a job for summer? And I thought I knew how to work, but not, I didn't really know how to work until I started working for Mark. But we ended up framing homes the first summer I worked for him in Lehigh, and yeah, he drove me into the ground. But to be honest, I really appreciate what he taught me, because I went on to work for my dad doing construction, and just throughout the years since then, I've been able to do a lot of things for my own, building and helping other people with projects, and doing stuff hands-on where you're able to fix things. And it kind of started with Mark and him just, yeah, he didn't come in slack. But anyway, I love you guys.
I met Mark when he came to train his dogs with me, actually. And he had Blue and Maya, they're two Cane Corsos. And when I was trying to kind of explain how I wanted to approach some of the training philosophies, as well as talk about some of Maya's health concerns, Mark wanted to argue with me because he knew more than me. Even though it was my profession to train dogs, Mark knew things. And he would sit back and ask me, why? With that look, And then he got me thinking to explain in a different way or a deeper way some of my training philosophies. And it was really annoying because I was supposed to be the professional in this career, and they came to me for help. And actually, it made me a better trainer because it helped me, it challenged the way that I would explain something or help me deepen the understanding of even what I was doing in my career. Because I'm like, why do I have to keep explaining this in different ways? But he didn't just want to know why, he wanted to know what it did to Baloo, what it did to Maya, what it did to any dog that I was working with, and it ended up actually deepening my own understanding of dog psychology with what I do, and also gave me a really big appreciation for Mark, because that first conversation ended up developing into a friendship, and every time I would talk to Mark, we would argue about something else. Whether it be something, most of the time something spiritual, because I didn't share the same faith as Mark, and so we argued. But it always ended up in a very deep, thought-provoking conversation. And it made me think deeper about my own life and the practices I had in my own life. And Mark has unintentionally very deeply affected me in my life. And Lyndon and I have a lifelong friendship as well. I kind of just wanted to share some of those things about him. So, thank you.
Mark is always saying the things that we would need at the time we would need them. I know years ago that I had my times that I argued with him, but I learned as time went on that he understood a lot more than I ever thought and ever could understand. And I always saw that one thing that when Mark said he would do something, he did it. There wasn't ever, he wouldn't give his word if he wouldn't keep it, and he always kept it. I also saw a lot of the love that he had for his wife. I can remember one time we went to a snow, we went sledding, well it was actually on tubes, and he ended up coming down before she did. And he sat there and he looked for her and he waited. He wanted to make sure she was safe before he moved, before he did anything else. But at the same time, I always saw another thing too, Linda's love for him. If he needed something or something needed to be done, she was always right there and always there to help him. He loved every one of us, and I hope that we can find it in our hearts to go forward and do those things that we can forgive, that we can love. That's what he'd want us to do now, is just to go forward and take those things that He's blessed us with and go out and do those same things.
I have the great privilege of knowing Mark and his family since I was about 4 years old. We had so many camping trips and dinners and amazing epic basketball games that lasted into the night. I grew up seeing his determination and his faith and belief in Christ, and seeing, hearing, and experiencing his prayers, and being able to implement some of that love for the truth over many years. We went on a trip to Arches in Moab, and my dad had to have the biggest trailer, which growing up now seems absolutely absurd, pulling a quad slide out 36 bumper pull trailer up these crazy canyons and streets and these situations. And one memory that stands out is we were going up this dirt road, and Moab, of course, when it starts raining, these flash floods come. Well, everybody, Mark looked at the situation, was able to figure out to, disconnect everybody's trailer and drive around and re-hook it back up. But our trailer, you couldn't do that. The road wasn't wide enough, or it just wasn't possible. And I remember him telling my dad, will you listen? You're not going to be able to see with your eyes. And we had these little radios, and he looked at me and said, Matt, you're going to be my partner. We're going to have to back your dad down this mountain. And of course, it's still raining, and it starts turning dark, but that was probably the best place to be. I was the oldest of 5, and my brothers and sisters in there were, fighting, freaking out, and there's a ravine on one side and a mountainside on the other, so I knew my mom was stressed, and my dad was trying to pay attention, and Mark just said, keep praying for him, that he might be able to focus. And we were joking around, laughing, having a blast, walking that 4.5 miles at a speed of a whopping 3 miles or 0, sometimes just letting off the gas, going in reverse, and a lot of no, Eric, your other left. No, the other left. But I can tell you, him using every opportunity to
to how you relate to your relationship with God. To have that parable or that tangible thing was pretty amazing. We made it down, you know. I remember them being so proud of my dad for listening. You know, and him looking at me as we were going down, saying, you know, pretty amazing what the Lord did because of the runoff of the water and that ravine on that other side, how close that was to losing the whole thing. But that ended up being just an absolute great trip. I remember carrying Cody all over the arches. These were my brothers, sister, second mom, and my second dad. And just like Randy and so many others, he had no problem with correction. At the most opportune time when you needed it, smack you right in between the eyes, metaphorically speaking. To get your attention, to look at differently, to dig deep. To really question your purpose and your integrity, and to question and dig deeper on that relationship. He was there for so many hard times in my life, always knowing exactly what to say to pierce me and my soul. That man could look you straight in the eye and communicate with your heart. So many times I remember thinking, praying about stuff, situations that I was going through, and in a meeting, family function, just having dinner, or even just walking by their house or driving, and he'd be able to Gary's point, know exactly what you were thinking about, what you were asking. He said many times to me, I know what you're thinking about, or I know your question, and here's your answer. And then later on, I got to the point where he didn't have to say that. Those intense eyes will be able to communicate with you. What I'm grateful for is the connection with my wife, with my kids as well. They know I'm as groundwork as well. And I'm so honored to call him my brother. Not too many weeks ago, he reached out and texted about, some batteries, and always took the opportunities, full attention in the moment. And I just remember him ending it and saying, "Thank you, my brother. I love you." And his buddy texted me, I'm just so grateful for him, for all of you. And what he taught, well, we all need to stand up and live by. But his greatest gift was how to get your prayers answered through forgiveness, through loving, just loving, just like my wife said. But that forgiveness. So, thank you for this opportunity, Mark. Love you.
Like Matt, Mark was my second dad. I always tell Linda she's my second mom every time I see her. Listen. Because of, my parents, Linda and Mark have known me since I was 2 or 3. And we had a lot of trips together, a lot of fun times. Overall, we'd have him at the house all the time, and he would be rocking in his chair, watching his TV, and if you were hungry, you did not reach for the chips because those were loud. He would shush you and yell at you. But I wasn't really planning on talking, but as I was sitting there, I remember a time that I was over at your guys' house, and I don't know, doing something, running around, and I scratched his truck. And I was petrified. I was not ready to have that conversation, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna, it's little, he won't notice it, but knowing the perfectionist that he is, he would notice. And, he taught a lot of things. He taught you to, not cower down, to stand up, and, in that moment, I could either run home and worry about it for the rest of my life, but it didn't. I just went in and I talked to him. I said, hey, I am so sorry, crying, bawling, ready to get kicked up the stairs too. And he looked at me and he just said, are you okay? I said, yeah, are you okay? And he said, it's okay, I love you. Not a big deal. And that's who he was. He just loved you for you. He had the biggest heart, and he loved you guys so much. And I'm just really grateful for all the opportunities that I've had and to have him in my life. And, whether you thought you had a problem or not, he was going to sit down and talk to you, and we talked for hours. But I'm just so grateful for him, for you guys, and for all the memories that we have together. And
I've had the privilege of knowing Mark for a long time. I first met him in 1985, and I met him at the church hospital. And then a week later, I was given the privilege of being his partner. And I learned correction in so many ways through life. As he would tell me something, I'd say, that can't be. I'd go back home and look it up. No, Eric, you're wrong. It is that way. It was so neat to me because we were hired on and we were there told we'd be there for 6 months. And Mark came to me and said I asked the Lord, and he told me we'd have 2 years. And so I was at the church office building for exactly, to the day, 2 years. And so was Mark. And it was kind of fascinating how, matter what happened, he would always say, I inquired of the Lord and asked the Lord about this and was told this. And what he was told came to fruition. And that's been my experience with this, my brother, forever. And then I've come to learn nothing happens without purpose. That's, the day he was born, the things that, everything in Mark's life, you can look it up, you'll find that there's a purpose in it. And it's so cool to me because there is no chance in anything. And so everything you see will come to its fruition. And I've known Mark for that long to know that that is true. Thank you, sir.
I've known Martin and Linda my entire life, and a lot of what Matt just said is how I feel. Like, you'd see something and you knew it was true. If Mark tells you he loves you, you knew that was the truth. You just felt it. Not very many people that you can feel that with. They tell you something and you know it will be done. I'm gonna miss the stories, mostly the practical jokes that he played on my dad when they're on the mission field. So every time he told the stories, they get a little bit more embellished. You know, right here a little bit more. And by the end, I'm not quite sure what to believe or not, but it was definitely fun hearing those. And he had so many stories, and I am grateful for that they met each other, or I would not be here. I remember so many times growing up, we'd come down from Wyoming and stay with them, and had a lot of the good times. I remember one time we came, they weren't home when we got there, and somehow my dad was able to get in the house, and like we stayed, I don't know how old I was, but we stayed in the basement, and they came home the next morning, and that's one of my, I think, earlier memories of staying with you guys. And later on we'd have so much fun with like air hockey and stuff, and Randy played all the time. There's just a lot of things I could say, but I really miss him. I love you guys, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to meet and to move here. Have the time that we have, so thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to come share?
I am Jacob. I know Mark for my whole life. One thing that I remember is he always cared about everybody else. He would do anything for anybody. I remember so many times, if you were having a problem, you didn't even have to ask. You'd just come out, start talking to you, and help you work through it. I'm so grateful for the time that I've had to be with him and be able to know him, know his family, be able to grow up with them. I'm just grateful for all the time we've had. Thank you.
Well, we'd like to thank you, thank everyone for coming up and sharing your memories and thoughts about Mark. Now, at this time, we would sing as a congregation, How Great Thou Art. I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to be able to conduct this service for Mark. It's not very often you can have the privilege to do this for your best friend. So I have a few thoughts written down, so bear with me. I don't want to miss anything. Many years ago, my son Adam was diagnosed with a hernia. He was 5 years old. The doctors told us the only way to fix it would be surgery. And so my wife and I, we prayed about it. We prayed for Adam. And the Lord told me and my wife, Jill, to seek out Mark Hardwood. So I called Mark and I asked him if he would help me give our son a blessing. And he said, absolutely. So we went to their house in, Mark and Linda were in West Jordan. We went to their house and we blessed Adam. And the hernia went away. And that was 23 something years ago. And even the doctors were amazed. They couldn't figure it out. So the Lord told me that Mark was a man of God, and I saw and witnessed God heal my son, our son. And I knew that Mark had a special connection with the Lord to make that happen. And I've never met anybody in my whole life who could open the heavens like he did and get answers to prayers. So this was about the time that Mark and Linda were planning and moving to their new home in Eagle Mountain. And I knew there was something special about Mark. And so with the Lord's help, my wife and I were able to move out there. I wanted to be near him. I wanted to know what his secret was. I wanted to know what his connection was and how he connected with the Lord and had the Lord in his life. And so we moved out there. In fact, we moved right back to their house. And Mark framed our house, and we eventually became close friends with Mark and Linda and our family, our kids, Rachel and Adam. And so we had the opportunity when Mark and Linda were building their beautiful new home and they were living in trailers. I think you guys have remember that. We had the opportunity, Adam and Rachel and Jill, and we would come out every Thursday and bring you dinner. And it was awesome there. I don't know what happened to that place. There was nothing there. Stars were beautiful. There was like nobody there. But it was interesting because after dinner, the kids would go in the other trailer and play. And I don't even want to know what happened over there. I'm not sure yet. But I kind of have an idea, but we really don't want to know. That's another discussion. But so Linda and Mark and Jill and I would be in the other trailer, and Mark would he just tells stories about his personal experiences with Christ, and would go on for hours. We'd be out there. It was a beautiful thing. We loved looking forward to that every Thursday. And he would just continue to tell about his relationship with Christ. And he would say, one thing about Mark is he said, go find out for yourself. Don't believe what I'm telling you. You go find out if what I'm telling you is true. I know it is, but you need to find out. And he would tell you, the Lord's just waiting for someone to reach up and take his hand and believe him. So he said, go believe and don't let go. So little did I know that decision to move to Eagle Mountain would impact my life and my family's lives forever. The healing of my son, our son Adam, was just the beginning of many miracles I saw while I had the opportunity to rub shoulders with Mark. Like it's been mentioned before, Mark would say there's a reason for everything that happens in your life. There are no accidents. The Lord allows it for your eternal good. He would say those are opportunities or invitations to go talk to the Lord and strengthen that relationship and find your answers. He would say many of the things that we'll experience will be hard, very hard, but that you have to experience the bad and the good so you'll come to appreciate and cherish the good when it comes. Mark would even say that Christ learned obedience and wisdom through the things he suffered. I know Mark and Linda, we've known them for a long time, and I know their families had many highs and many lows over the years. And I witnessed a lot of those for myself. But through all those experiences, like it's been mentioned before, Mark would always gather his family and unite them in prayer. To find guidance, to seek guidance from the Lord. And he always told his family, we just forgive. We just forgive. And that forgiving was one of the major keys to open the heavens. Mark lived and loved with passion. He had passion for everything he did. And all of us who knew him, it was 250% on a good day or a bad day. But I was lucky enough to know Mark for a lot of years and consider him my best friend. Like I said, I witnessed for myself the way he lived. His life was with genuine love. He truly was a beloved Son of God and a disciple of the Lord in every aspect of that word. He had a love for the Lord and a love for his fellow man. He would say, love to live and live to love. I love him as a dear brother. A dear brother in Christ. Now, if you're lucky enough to really know Mark and have him consider you as a friend, he has something special and extraordinary. He is a warrior for God, his Father, with the heart of a lion, and it is eternal and everlasting. Mark loved and cared for people, which is rare in this world when people have hidden agendas. And I can tell you, one of the things I've seen over the years, there was no hidden agenda with Mark. He was a genuine, real deal. And he loved and cared for you. He never looked for anything in return, ever. And that was amazing to me, especially in this world. As I mentioned, as been mentioned before, Mark lived with passion for whatever he was doing. But the other side of Mark was a kid at heart with a devious sense of humor. I think that's one reason why we connected so much as brothers. One of the greatest shirts he always wore was, I've upped my limits, so up yours. And so, it just kind of, he was just, we had so many good times. But we played out pranks and played out pranks on many of you out there, so I don't know that we're sorry, but that was fun. There was the infamous chicken caper, many of you may recall. There was the book incident. There was a fake poop in our model home in the bathroom, one thing. There was a movie theater escapade, and while framing homes, any one of us as an unsuspecting victim might, endure all manners of torments and those kinds of things. Those are just a few to mention, but there's so many more. One of the things that stood out to me was on one of our vacations, we ended up in the Pacific Ocean. And many of you, we all know Mark, you can't just go to the edge, the beach and the ocean. You had to go out as far as you could see without even, so your nose was above the water. I mean, you had to go way out. Passion, right? Well, anyway, so we're out there and this big, giant, enormous wave hits us. And we just buried us into the ground. I mean, buried us all the way down. I remember hitting the bottom of wherever we were. And it took a minute to kind of get your bearings and surface back up. So I'm surfacing back up, looking around, and I don't see Mark. But I do see his swimming trunks. And so, he surfaced, he retrieved his trunks and he laughed and said, "Don't take yourself so serious, lighten up, and enjoy the ride." Anyway, that was pretty funny. That was a fun time. I mean, we had so many camping trips, ATV rides, vacations as couples, as families, and many good times spent together. I know there are memories that my family and I will always cherish. So, not only people were drawn to Mark, but animals as well. One time on a beach in Hawaii, he said, "Watch this," and he called to the pigeons. And soon his whole body was covered. He had his arms out, and they were all over him. And the beach blanket was as well. It was amazing. We'd snorkel, and I'd say, "Where are all the fish?" And he'd point them back at him. He'd turn back, and there would be hundreds of fish following Mark. It was amazing to me. And then there's so many of these experiences, but one time we were on an ATV ride with our families and we ran into a mama moose with her babies, and she wasn't moving. And Mark just stood up and calmly said, "We're not here to hurt you, move along." And it moved along. It was great. I mean, it was amazing to me. And I think, like, I don't know, Jesse already said, I could be here for days and days telling stories. But the great thing about Mark is that he always had a story. It didn't matter who you were. Now I want you to know, and it's been mentioned as well, of the love that Mark had for Linda with his whole heart. And he would tell everybody that he met how special she was, and that he's never met another woman like her, ever. And that she was his soulmate and love of his life. And he knew that he meant that with every fiber of his being. And he loved his children. He would brag about you guys all the time, about your successes and the many achievements and all the things you guys were doing. He was so proud of you guys. He really was. And he loved being a grandpa. I understand that I'm a grandpa too. I know it's hard to believe with this. Anyway, but Mark loved being a grandpa, and he loved you guys. He loved being a grandpa and being able to share stories about you kids. He loved, and he'd get a twinkle in his eye every time he had a new story to tell. But you were his best buddy, and he loved it. So I'd suggest at this point let's honor Mark's legacy by living our lives as he did, by living as a disciple in Christ. He was a truth seeker, and learn to love and forgive. Let's learn to love and forgive one another, and turn to the Lord continually in prayer always. So love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself, just as Mark did his whole life. Now, I know the Hardwood family's had a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of late nights, but I have to tell you, I think it was Mark himself last night that reminded me about that principle, because I was tossing and turning online about how important it is to love your fellow man and realize how important it is. We need to lift one another up and be there for one another and not focus on each other's weaknesses or shortcomings. We need to be a light for the Lord and to help people find their way in this hard, cruel world. As Christ taught and lived, as well as Mark taught this principle and lived, let's love one another. So at this time, we'd like to recognize the casket bearers for Mark today. They are Randy Hardwood, his son, Jesse Hardwood, his son, Scott Berry, his son-in-law, Jeff Burrows, Gary Bertinoli, Eric Pease, Matt Pease, Paul Lloyd, Aaliyah Miley. And the honorary casket bearers, Cody Hardwood, Mark's son, Kyle Bassett, Dale Burrows, Jacob Bertinoli, Brent Scarley, Jack Pease, Trayson Beatty, and Cole Hardwood. Now we'll sing as a congregation, God be with you till we meet again. After the closing hymn, Gary Bertinoli, close friend, will offer the benediction, and after the prayer I will have a few announcements to make.
Our Father in heaven, we come before you in the name of the anointed sons. We're grateful for this opportunity to come here this day and to honor our brother, our friend, our father, grandfather, our brother Mark Hardwood. We ask thee at this time to bless his wife, Linda, and bless his family, Randy, Debbie, Trey, and Gracie, Jesse, and Haley, Nicole, and June. Bless Scott, Megan, and Maeve. Ask a special blessing on Cody. Lord, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity each one of us have had to know Mark and to work with him and to witness his faith and his determination, his work, and his belief in you. We're thankful, Lord, for each other. Ask thee to help us that we can take these principles that we have learned and use them in each of us in our lives, that we might become better people, that we might be more forgiving and more trusting, that we can think of others before ourselves. We're grateful for this day that you have given us. Ask thee to bless Mark as he goes on, as he rises. We look forward to meeting him again. Help each of us in this mortality, that we might go forward in truth, that we might go forward watching you and taking your spirit to be our guide. We're thankful for the opportunity, for the example that we have been given, and help us to go forward. Help us each in our individual families and our relationships, that we might take your spirit to be our guide. We ask these things humbly in the name of the Holy Messiah. Amen.
Okay, once again, we'd like to thank everyone for this beautiful celebration of Mark's life. Now we'd like to, the Hardwood family would like us to join in a luncheon in Mark's honor at 2 o'clock this afternoon, in a few minutes, in the Valley View Ward House, and the address can be found on your program. And we would like to thank our neighbors and friends for their generosity in providing the food and the facilities for today's lunch. We really do appreciate your kindness. Now at this time, we'd like the audience to please stand and the casket bearers to come take your place by Mark.
try to talk really loud. I've been asked to say the meaning of the dove. When you say that it's representative of the endless spirit, the spirit that exists in people that has their mortal body. And the world sees birth and death as beginning and endings when they're just actually milestones in our spiritual journey. Times when heaven and earth intersect like right now. And the world sees birth and death as beginning and endings when they're just actually milestones in our spiritual journey. Times when heaven and earth intersect like right now. April.